Welcome to the Cryptocurrencies, the Rise of Digital Money show, and I'm here with ReadySetCrypto.com, Doc Severson, and it's a father-son operation over there at Ready Set Crypto. They have a great YouTube channel, they have a website, and they are all about the yin and yang. So the son is focused on fundamentals and everything that has to do with everything that goes on behind the scenes in crypto. And Doc, who we are interviewing today, is all about charts. So it's technical analysis. And if you guys don't know a lot about technical analysis, we're going to talk into this thoroughly today, not only on cryptos but in general. And I am going to introduce you to Doc's other side of trading, which is options, because I think the first half of 2019 is going to be very sideways, and so we're not going to see a lot of multiple expansion, a lot of price appreciation. And in a sideways market, one of the best ways to generate income and yield and safe, consistent returns is by options trading. So we're going to talk about that as well. And Doc, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, it's great to be here, Lior.
I want to ask you first regarding technical analysis in general. There are patterns in technical analysis that are more reliant and less reliant, and people follow both, obviously. There's probability behind technical analysis. Could you explain to somebody who's never traded using technical analysis, what is the art and the science behind technical analysis, and what are the probabilities of some of the signals that technical analysis offers?
Okay, awesome. That's an interesting question because somebody actually answered that once upon a time. There's a guy by the name of Thomas Bulkowski who has written several books on this, because what happens is you start to talk technical analysis with somebody, and usually what happens is, especially if this person is more of a quant or if they have grown up on the Chicago trading pit floors, they'll say something to the effect of, charts belong at the bottom of the sea as well as the other sunken boats that are out there, right? So you get this sort of religion that's out there in the world of analyzing potential forward moves based on past price movement, right? So the one person that's been able to kind of bridge that gap has been Thomas Bulkowski. So he'll analyze different chart patterns that are out there. So whether or not you're talking about like a double bottom or an ascending triangle pattern or whatever you want to call it, and then he'll actually assign a probability to the outcome of that potential pattern based on fitting certain criteria to that. So chart patterns is part of what I do. It's not all of what I do. Most of what I do centers around actual price trends. And it's kind of funny because once somebody gets into charting for the first time, the first thing that you hear from somebody is about Dow theory. And they'll try to teach them Dow theory right off the bat. Well, an uptrend is a series of higher highs and higher lows. And usually a new student's eyeballs will roll back into their forehead and say, okay, I think I understand that. Can you put some of those really nice, pretty colorful studies on your chart, please? Because I don't quite understand what you're saying. And then people fall into this sort of reliance on different studies. So usually they start out with stochastics and MACDs and moving averages. And next thing you know, they've cluttered up their chart to the point where price is just a little tiny strip at the very top of it, and they've buried the exact information that they're really looking to do. So what I've done over my career has been strip more and more of that away. And there's only usually one study that I have up on the chart itself. So price to me is everything. Kind of a long-winded way of saying that there are probabilities that are involved with this, but you have to dig for them.
Sure. And I've done technical analysis courses when I got started at investing when I was 16. Probably one of the first things I did was take a technical analysis course. It was mostly about signals in the forex market, and obviously the person who gave the course, he went one by one and showed us every signal and the probability that the signal has had in trading throughout history, and back testing it. And I want to ask you, on cryptocurrencies, do they have a long enough chart to look at them from a technical perspective?
Yes and no. It depends on what you're using. I mean, like if you're using the standard, if you're using something like a golden cross or death cross that requires you to have a 200-day moving average on there, you may not have enough history on that. So if you're using some of the old golden standard of technical analysis, some of these just don't exist, right? So you have to go with smaller and smaller either time frames, or you have to strip back the studies. Most studies are using a period of at least 14 periods or something like that. So most cryptos do meet that. But again, this is why I mostly use price, because if you can understand what the trend is at different time frames, and understand what your anchor time frame trend is, and then understand what your signal time frame trend is, then that's pretty much all you need to know about that specific price chart or coin.
Now, we've seen a truly incredible year in 2018, with mostly everything going down substantially. I assume that Bitcoin is one of the most important coins that you follow as well. Could you talk about the difference between a coin or an asset like Bitcoin, which is totally decentralized and has no management team and governance, and how you think it's different than a coin that does have that it's almost like a little startup company, because it does have a leadership, a management, etc. There are people taking decisions. How is it different in terms of technical analysis and looking at the project than Bitcoin? What's the difference between them? Do you see a difference between a decentralized asset and a centralized asset in terms of the technical analysis?
Well, everything begins and starts with volume, right? If you don't have volume, then you're not going to have a very tight pattern to work from. So Bitcoin does have the advantage that obviously it's still the king. It to me is almost like a virtual index. Like everybody in the stock market watches the S&P 500 and the Dow and the NASDAQ and the Russell 2000 for kind of like direction for where the broader market is going. In cryptocurrency, you sort of have that. There are some alt specific, virtual indices that are out there. I don't spend any time watching those though, because most of my time I'm just watching Bitcoin. Because as goes Bitcoin, goes the rest of the market. So in my mind, it's kind of a virtual index. But as it compares to other like altcoins, everything has to have volume. If there's no volume, if there's no trading, if there's no price discovery behind something, and we have a number of these that are out there. A lot of altcoins are just out there. It's almost like just drifting in the ocean. There's actually no pattern whatsoever to them. That's the biggest change that I've seen since from 2017 to 2018, is that in 2017, I saw some beautiful, beautiful patterns. I mean, my eye was just pulled right towards them and saying, my God, this is the most gorgeous TA I've seen, because one of the things I've been dealing with in the equities market has been this sort of quantitative easing, just this manipulation of the underlying currency, which is distorting what I saw in the stock market in terms of the price discovery of that, and making it do different things that I'd never seen before. And we switch over to crypto, and all of a sudden, all of that distortion was gone away. But that's all dependent upon volume. So when the volume goes away, all of a sudden the pattern recognition goes away, the price discovery goes away, everything just becomes more, it's almost dead. So that's why one of the first things I'll look at before I get involved with something is to see whether or not there's actual volume coming into it. So this is what I'm seeing right now as Bitcoin and the rest of the top 20 is just sort of drifting down right now. There are alts that are coming off the bottom that are establishing really pretty good bases and are starting to trend in ways that are significant. And I measure this by, it's almost like a stair-stepping type of movement where you'll see a breakout and then consolidation, breakout, consolidation. So we're seeing a lot of those coming into that, but it's got to have volume to get into that sort of pattern.
Did 2018 surprise you?
No, because when I see parabolic markets, and this is what I was saying at the end of 2017 was look out, look out, look out. And we saw the same thing happen in the equities market in January of 2018, where things go to an almost infinite slope, just like what happened to like gold and silver back in 2010. You're going to have what's called a hairy back on that rally. And we've had a classic hairy back on the backside of Bitcoin and pretty much everything else in cryptocurrency.
Let's talk about what you see right now. What are most exciting patterns that you can, kind of share with us? I know you have a premium newsletter, which is paid, so obviously, out of respect for your subscribers, we don't go into too many details. But can you just share in general, or whatever you want to talk about in terms of what's the most exciting things that you see?
Okay, the most exciting things that I see, I believe that the first half of 2019 will be almost exclusively for traders. And when I say traders, those that are able to get in and get out of assets on a timely manner. Now, whether or not that's intraday or the space of a couple of days or maybe even a week or so, generally it's going to be short-term trades. This is what I'm seeing. So I'm excited about that, because that kind of plays into my wheelhouse. It is going to be really tough, I think, for the dip buyers. So for those that are averaging down, they're going to be continuing to average down until we do find a floor. But I believe that in 2019, at some point, we are going to get a capitulation move. And this is where the majority of people will say, oh, to hell with this. I got into crypto in 2017, and I can't take this anymore. And so you'll see almost this sort of collective trapdoor open up where people just stop talking about crypto. They fold their hand. They sell out at the bottom. And retail will always do that. They will always collectively do that as a herd. They will sell out at the bottom. That by itself doesn't necessarily mark the bottom. What usually has to happen is after that capitulation, there's probably going to be about 6 to 9 months of base building. And so you're going to have some huge swings in there. You're going to see some big swings that are coming up, and everybody's going to get all excited and say, here it comes, here it is. Here's the big bull that we've been waiting for a year and a half on. And then that is going to get faded. It's going to get pushed back down underwater. It's going to, if you're familiar with the game Whack-A-Mole at the fairs, it's going to be exactly like that. So you're going to see these rallies up, Whack-A-Mole straight back down. Rallies up, Whack-A-Mole straight back down. This is base building. And so if you're familiar, and especially if you can trade to the short side as well too, through whatever your favorite instrument, and I'm hoping that 2019 will also be the year of the derivative as it comes to the crypto space, then I think it's going to be a fantastic opportunity for trading. But for those that just simply follow the religion of hodl and or buy the dip, it's going to be a really, really frustrating time for those people. You can't trade the market that you want. You can only trade the market that you have in front of you.
Let's talk a little bit about the underlying principle and intrinsic value of Bitcoin. What do you think will propel and catalyze some sort of a bottom and then a comeback for crypto, if you foresee a comeback for Bitcoin? And if you do, what are you looking at in terms of the long-term price for it? Where do you see Bitcoin in 5 years? What will it do?
Well, I tell you what, that's probably not my wheelhouse. So I typically don't don't play the forecasting game. I just trade what's in front of me. But I understand the interest for something like that. A lot of people want to know exactly where the bottom is. A lot of people want to know where the top is. And quite honestly, I don't know what is even going to happen tomorrow in things. However, what I can do is I can recognize what the trend is and when the trend changes. But, and that to me is a skill that I think is going to be important for people, because I've been through this before, and a lot of us have been through this before. The late 90s was exactly like this in some ways. And I think to some degree, Lior, you talk about this as well too, and some of your work is that we had to go through, when the tech bubble came along, everything was built based on speculation. There was no revenue back in the late 90s. None of these companies, I mean, Amazon even was just, they had no profits because they kept reinvesting and reinvesting and reinvesting into their infrastructure. So they had no profits to speak of for more than a decade. And then eventually they're in a position to win. And this is what's going to happen with crypto as well, too. Now, look, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know if Bitcoin is going to be around a year or two from now. I think the original idea for it is brilliant, is absolutely brilliant, and is a game changer. And right now, some of the interference that we're seeing are by the established systems that are doing everything in their power to kill it. But I think what's also going to happen is a lot of people, well, there's two things to me. First of all, I think the existing system is bloated at the seams and is going to have some real problems over the course of the next few years. Because of the monkeying around. I mean, those commercials that I grew up with, it's not nice to fool with Mother Nature. Kind of what the Fed has done with the monetary base and printing all the money that it has. I think the existing monetary system is going to be in trouble over the next couple of years. And we've built so many asset bubbles with that. So that's one. Number two is I believe that Bitcoin is completely decoupled from, I believe that there is no correlation right now between Bitcoin and the current monetary system. It really isn't. The only time that we see anything towards that is when we have the equity markets having a really, really, really bad day. And what we're seeing is margin calls and redemptions. And so what they're doing is they're raiding their piggy bank and they're selling out of any asset that they can get their hands on. And because of the fact that the crypto market is only in billions, so it's gonna have some downstream effects from that. But that to me is the only correlation that I'm seeing. The second thing, and I think this is huge, and nobody's talking about this, is that if you look at people that are in their 20s, and maybe even people that are in their early 30s, really for the last 10 years, they've not been investing in anything. Right? Because the financial crisis took care of that, number one. Number two, their youth really prevented them from having any investable capital. Do you think that those people are going to trust the existing monetary system that led to their hard times 10 years ago to begin with? No, that's the whole reason why Satoshi did his thing and wrote the white paper. So those people, and I talk to one of these people every day, and my son, he's in his 20s. And he has no intention on investing into the equities markets. Why should he? Why should he ever trust that? So you've got this whole generation of people right now that are growing up that are in their 20s and 30s. And these are extremely smart cookies, right? These are, we kid around the millennial generation and everything like that. But I think they're to be taken seriously, because when they do have the funds to invest, they're not going to be investing in equities. They are going to be using cryptocurrencies. They are going to be transferring value between countries and cryptocurrencies. They will do everything to get around the existing monetary system that we see people clinging onto today. And it's going to be huge. So to me, that's the most important thing, is that you've got a whole generation of younger people today that will not move forward in the existing monetary system. They will move forward, though, in cryptocurrencies.
Well, that's very interesting of you to say that, and we'll definitely have to see if that is what is going to play out in the next decade or so, because it's an entire generation that still hasn't bought a house, and it's an entire generation who's before its peak earning years, and so the millennials are going to have a very deep impact on how the world is going to look like in the next 10 years. So it's very, very important.
They will do everything that they can not to follow in the footsteps of those before them. I mean, I'm seeing this every day. And so that to me is one of the strongest cases as to why I think cryptocurrencies will not only survive, but flourish in the years going forward.
And Doc, where can people check out more of what you have to say?
A couple of places. So first of all, we do have a website, which is readysetcrypto.com. People can sign up for our free newsletter. We also have a full, what we call the Crypto College. We have a number of free videos that will help people get started if they're curious about cryptocurrencies and about how to get started with this, so they can sign up for free and start watching them today. As well as we have a highly rated and very different YouTube channel that all they have to do is to look for the Ready Set Crypto channel, and I think they'll be hooked once they find that.
Doc, that's awesome, and that's obviously Ready Set Crypto on YouTube. And I really want to thank you for being here. We didn't get to touch on options, so I'll definitely have you on back to talk about options, because I think that's very important in 2019, and obviously after the markets roll over into a bear market or a sideways market. So thanks again for being here.
Okay, Lior, it was good to meet you, and I look forward to talking with you again.